This conference will now be recorded.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Mr. Lakeman, where's it put my foot?
August 17th, no public comments on the screen, no public in the room. So on to administrative business.
Could everyone make sure your microphones are switched on? Okay, thank you.
We'll go on to, well, we got the COVID update on there. Is Deidre on? No.
Yes,
Yeah, she is. All right, Deidre, can you hear us?
Okay.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, Marion County has a total of 61 cases, out of which are 51 confirmed positives and 10 probable. If you remember, probable is with no confirmatory lab testing performed, but they meet clinical criteria and epidemiological evidence. So in a sense, they're a contact of a confirmed case, or with presumptive lab evidence for COVID-19, and they meet either clinical criteria or epidemiologic evidence. So we have 2 active cases whom are isolated and the contacts have been quarantined. The positive testing rate for Marion County is 4.6%. Please keep in mind that the numbers on the KDHE website are a bit different, as we have now begun to include Tabor testing in our reporting numbers. So the last report, Tabor had done 386 tests and KDHE had 720. Now I know Tabor did some testing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so this week I'll be getting those numbers as well. So also keep in mind the testing numbers can have a lag time, as the testing is not necessarily entered until results are obtained. Do you have any questions on those numbers?
Deidre, I had several questions. The number of tests that are given, that really doesn't reflect then that this is just Marion County residents? Could be people from other counties or students or...
Yeah, the Tabor test will be Tabor, either staff, the faculty, or their students. Now, the testing of a student, like if a student would be positive, the state is trying to figure out how they're going to handle college students, because the way Tabor has their plan kind of written, if a student is positive and they have the means to go isolate at home, that's what's going to happen. So then we're trying to work out, so if they go to another county, does that county get that number, or do we keep that number? So those logistics are still trying, there's a lot of different opinions out there. So we're trying to work that out with KDHE, how those numbers will reflect.
But the total tested at 1,106 on the dashboard that we see in front of us right now, are those all Marion County people?
Yes. Now, I will say 720 of those are for sure Marion County people. The 386 that were tested at Tabor, that could be some of their Tabor staff that live outside of Marion County. I did not ask, but I'm sure they could notify us, or they could start breaking that down if you prefer.
Another question that I had, I've kind of been gathering some questions people ask me, and they're wanting to know about false positive tests. And I take for granted that doesn't mean the 10 that are probable, correct?
No, the 10 that are probable are not confirmed lab tests.
So explain to me what a false positive is, and have we had false positive tests?
I'm going to kind of take an assumption here that people are talking about, like, I believe there was a lot of media about Florida or other states, don't quote me on that state, but other states reporting false positives so they would get increased funding. But we have confirmed lab, like, we are not entering any cases into the system unless we have a confirmed lab test. So I don't know, I mean, and these come from either LabCorp, LabQuest, or KDHE. So if something fishy's going on in the labs, I can't speak for that, but I would say that our numbers are positive.
Okay, and then another question that I received, and of course I guess it would deal only with KDHE lab because we don't know much, I guess I don't know about the private labs, but the question was, is KDHE using lab tests from China?
Well, that would be a question that would have to be asked of KDHE.
Oh, okay.
Because I have no idea where they get their testing from, but I feel pretty confident that they are positives that we are receiving.
Deidre,
Yes.
it's Randy. What kind of percentage have we had where people have received a positive test and took a second test and come back that it was negative? Have we had any of that?
We don't recommend that if you have one positive test, we don't recommend you test again, because if you're truly a positive, you're going to test positive. Possibly we have seen people, not here in Marion County, but that have tested for up to 3 months. So we recommend people, if you have a positive test, don't get tested again.
Okay.
And I think if any individual is getting tested, they need to feel comfortable with their provider, because I feel like the providers in Marion County will only send to labs that they trust.
Deidre, I had one other question, and you probably can't answer this, and I couldn't find anything by kind of searching around for it, but a person told me in either a state or some states, the HIPAA laws allowed the health department to actually give the names of those infected to the county commission. Have you heard anything like that?
I'm not sure, but I can check that out with Brad. I guess under the HIPAA law, it was my understanding that we could share information patient information, if another practice, like amongst the providers, because they are providing patient care also. If you guys want to check with Brad and you want a list, and if they say it's okay, that's, but I guess, what would you do with those names?
I was just curious. Maybe
Okay.
maybe 2 months ago I'd have been more interested, just because of location more than name.
Yeah. I mean, but I will be happy to check with Brad on that.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Question that came up.
Any other questions for Deidre? Okay, Deidre, is
I
that all?
would- Well, I just want to let you know that I am continuing to work with the schools. The schools have developed a gating criteria, which is basically a matrix used to determine how classes are conducted. And I'm meeting with the school nurses starting the week of the 24th, and we'll be discussing isolation and quarantine processes within the schools. I'm also in constant communication with Tabor regarding their testing numbers and their quarantine and isolation, and they also have developed a plan with the matrix. And that's all I have.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for, I think we're all interested to see how our schools go and helping the school system out, so appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deidre. All right, administrative business.
Okay, just a matter of information on that budget certificate that where it said yes, that was just a number that had been put in as a dollars and cents number, and it made it round. So everything was fine on the publication. I haven't gotten a corrected copy, but there was no issue with the budget. In your packet, you have the clerk's report. And then I do have several salary sheets today.
So we got a salary change for Amanda McReynolds, transfer station, from $22.67 a month to $23.10 a month. Reason 6-month raise. Looks like a part-time RN salary change for Stacy Peterson, the health department, 0 to 25 an hour. Salary change for the health department, Jarla Dirksen, part-time RN, 0 to 25 an hour.
Will these salaries fall under that COVID?
Yeah, it should be under the Sparks for the contact tracing. Salary change for the sheriff department to C.J. Perry, $17.36 to $17.69 per hour, 1-year raise. Trash pickup.
Yeah, last week you had approved the, a 1-year agreement with the city of Florence for trash pickup at the Park and Lake. And, but you did not sign the agreement, and I asked them to resubmit it with a 1-year term and with 5 commission signature lines, which they have done.
Okay.
So this was a previous action, it was already approved, it just needs to be signed.
We're okay with the 1 year, obviously.
Yeah, they put it in there. was an agreement in your packet, CDO agreement, and that is for Gala to be able to provide services for individuals in regard to healthcare on the ACA marketplace. And it's just a renewal. Let me find it again, sorry. Yeah, that's CMS
So,
information.
I'm guessing with that, they provide the software and updates and all that.
Well, it's online. I mean, I don't believe you have to have a specific software. So that would just take a motion and a vote to approve. That would just continue to allow her to provide those services.
Entertain a motion for the chairman to sign the agreement.
Second.
Need a motion.
I'll make a motion to the chairman sign agreement
All right.
with Ken second.
Okay. Can't you still second?
Yes, second.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Okay. And I'll have to grab that original agreement in the other room and get your signature. It didn't get in my folder, so.
That's the minutes.
Yeah.
August 6th. Everybody had a chance to read the August 6th minutes? Any questions or concerns? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 6th, 2020.
Second.
Second by Randy. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Then the minutes for August 10th, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve August 10th minutes as written.
Okay, I'll second.
I'll second
Oh, hey, I'll let Dave have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
it. Aye.
Aye. 5-0. And we have the minutes for August 14th, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve those since I were here.
I'll second it because I was here. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll recuse
Aye.
myself since I was not here.
What?
I wasn't here, so I recuse myself from doing that.
Okay, so I heard Randy say aye.
Aye.
Dave, aye. So, for with a recusal or abstention?
An abstention.
Okay, one abstention.
I thank you guys for doing that. You guys did a good job. Appreciate it. Tina, thank you.
I think
and the
Tina-
staff.
Yeah, Tina and their staff.
It went pretty seamless.
Well, we're trying to do everything we can to make it a little smoother and faster each time, because it takes a long time and
Sure, everybody was tired of hearing my monotone voice by the end of the day, reading the names.
Okay, I had a request from Lisa in the county appraiser's office because she, as you know, our employee went to work down there, and on the books, he had 98.25 hours of comp time, and she does not want that against her department, so she's requesting that it be paid out at this time and be paid out of courthouse.
You have any issue with that?
Not particularly, no.
Okay. I'll go ahead and make a motion to go ahead and pay out the comp time to Mike Hurst. Second.
Who was the second?
Randy.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Okay. Had just a question on whether you're wanting to look at bidding out the liability insurance for the county. We switched to K-Camp 3 years ago. So are you wanting to keep with K-Camp, or are you wanting to start looking at bidding out the first of the year again? Because if we are gonna bid, then we need to allow carriers enough time. So it was just a question that came to me,
Okay.
so.
Let's just, give me your opinion of how they've worked with the county so far. Has it been seamless? Been good, or would you like to just tell us what's happened?
It's a lot different than it was when we had an actual insurance carrier.
Yeah.
So, it's just different because it's not the same kind of a setup, so.
But
Well,
did they
maybe
pay
in
the
the-
claims that were submitted, for the most part, the justifiable ones?
They have paid, like on the storm damage and things like that, on some of the liability claims, you know, where, it's been handled differently than in the past. With our old insurance, they would pay a certain amount. With K-Camp, they don't pay, for like trips and falls and things like that. But
Okay,
Maybe
that's a good issue right there. We've got a case, and I don't know where it's at, settled or anything, of a person falling here at this door. And before, what would happen, Tina, and then how's it varied to, and we were going to a lawsuit on that's the one that I'm thinking of. Is there any, I mean, what's the difference between what we had and what we got?
I think in the past, the previous company was a little bit more proactive about paying expenses and for those kind of things, and not denying initially. And so that's what just been the main difference. And maybe that's you know, maybe they shouldn't have been, because, you know, truly, if we're not at fault, why should we be paying? But sometimes just having them pay some of that upfront cost for those individuals will lessen the likelihood of them wanting to file a suit. So it's just a whole different process. I think we do a little more self-service on K-Camp than we did with having a full-service insurance company, to where we have to get on and do a lot of the entry rather than just calling an agent. So it's just a little bit different, and it's just up to you. And I need to check back and see what our time commitment was. I know we had a 3-year rate lock, basically, when we signed up, but I don't know if that was our full-time commitment or if we had to commit to 5 years. I don't know if anybody remembers offhand.
Did you save a lot of money?
Right.
Switching?
Yes.
Initially,
Initially we did.
but it of course, it keeps going up.
You get what you pay for though.
We saved over $40,000 a year by changing.
Well, maybe in the interest of transparency, it'd be best to just go ahead and bid it again. If they want our business, they would certainly bid it, wouldn't they?
I have no problem bidding it again. I think that's always a good thing to do, keep people on their toes.
When was the switch over?
I'd have to verify.
3 years?
Mhm.
Okay. Then it's probably time. It's always good to do bids every 3 years.
Well, and we had the other insurance for how long, 20 years or something like that?
Been quite a while. I was just wondering.
Yeah, been here forever.
I guess this incident, I don't know that we've heard, it hasn't been settled yet.
No.
Well, what's our responsibility on our stairway? I mean, if somebody goes out the door and kicks the rug over, and then the next person, whether it be me, you, or whoever comes in, the rug's folded over, is that our fault? I mean, who determines this kind of stuff? And
It is nowadays, with the lawyers.
and stuff, and it just,
It depends who's got the better lawyer.
yeah, and that's what this lawsuit seems to come up about. And it just, I don't agree with some of the things that they go into, but anyway, that's really what it's about. I mean, our stairway's there, so if ever case is gonna go to a lawsuit over something like that.
And you're
That's
in a
just,
single
that's just the world we live
Yeah.
in. That's
Yeah.
the world we live in right now.
I think, go ahead and make a motion, go ahead and entertain bids for,
I'll make a motion to go ahead and entertain bids for the county's liability insurance.
I'll second that. Any other discussion? All All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Okay, before we get that ready, I'll just verify the timing is appropriate, if that's good with you. That was all I had on administrative.
I think maybe go out and look for our old carriers if they want to bid.
They can bid.
I mean, that's,
Anybody.
Okay.
See Bryce.
I'm here.
Do not see who's on the agenda. Yeah.
There's a guy outside that was still wearing a mask.
Okay.
I recognize him.
Makes it hard. Makes it hard. I walk past a lot of people I know and they don't know me at all.
It's like the one in the paper, guess who these people are, and one of them was Isaac Detman.
And if you would just sit here.
Morning, Bill.
Good morning. All right.
Okay, feel outnumbered.
Floor is yours.
Okay, I'm here to talk two issues. They're both interrelated. Of course, dealing with roads. When I made this appointment, I know they asked me, have I dealt with the road and bridge department or took my issues to them, and I have several times. And I can't say that I received much cooperation or satisfaction to that matter. The way I was answered the last time I called was the way I've been answered previous times I've called. I'm not here to implicate I don't even know who the person was I talked to. But it was stated, you know, if we improve or rock your road, let's say, then we're gonna have to rock everybody's road. So it left me wondering, well, so no one gets anything, so everyone stays happy or unhappy. The other thing was stated, well, I'll put your name down with the, I don't know the number the person gave, the 100 or the 500 others who want rock in their area. So I don't believe either of those responses are proper. I've been a manager, retired now from USDA for 35 years, and I wouldn't expect my employees to conduct themselves that way with a customer or client. Anyway, so what I'm here to plead my case with, like I said, two cases. One is, I've lived at my residence for about, and I don't have any pictures to give you. I'm not going to submit that. You can visit the site, you can go on Google Earth and look at it from any angle you want. But I've noticed over 27 years, you know, if you live anywhere, you're going to know your surroundings pretty well after that length of time. And I've noticed that just maintenance schedule-wise has kind of really fell off. I don't even know who the person is that's the maintainer or grader for my area. I can't say his name. But I will say this, lately, as it stands right now today, and I'll be honest with you, it's in as good a shape as it's ever been. It got bladed. There's actually some holes that got filled, because before this time, and oh, by the way, it's 300th Street. You know, from US 77 to Xavier is about 1.5 miles stretch, and I don't know, further down is probably, you know, I mean, that's my area. But it used to be you had the zigzag holes just to get in. Some of them you couldn't avoid. So right now, yeah, it looks in good shape. My concern is weather when we get rainfall, and I'll get into this with the other issue, as to what kind of condition that road starts getting into. I know there was an issue with a crossing by the Pontius's residence. There was a wash over there, and that did get fixed. So, you know, I would just like to see improvement on a more consistent basis, I guess I'm saying, as far as that goes. I can give you, you know, all my supporting reasons. It's a well-traveled road. It's been that way ever since I've lived there. I count from the directory 8 residences that go up and down that road, and you've got, you know, delivery vehicles, you got farm equipment, there's farmland there, there's farm equipment going up and down the road, there's cattle trucks, we've got some livestock producers in the area, bus route, mail route, you know, it's used a lot. So the other thing, I guess, would be, and safety issues wise, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, I've got a neighbor who's got a serious health condition, but I don't think it makes a difference, young or old. Anybody could use, might need EMS services. And when they do, if we have a heavy rainfall and we have a crossing that's such that you can't access it or get across it, you're looking at a serious situation where if someone doesn't get the services, you're probably looking at that family bringing a court case or a lawsuit against the county. I don't know, is there any questions for me on this point? I'll go to shift to my other
Is that 300th, that's a mile north of Lincolnville?
Yes.
And then you're going east, and the
Yes.
first mile you turn off there's a little low water bridge. That's the bridge
Right.
you're talking about right there.
Right, that's what I'll get into.
Within about 200 feet or
Right,
300?
right.
Okay.
So
And that-
Clear Creek.
And as it exists today, there is a windrow of rock on the south side, about a foot high, that I guess was delivered there. And I think that's what was used to cover, you know, to improve the road. But I will say this, because it just happened within the last week. When I pulled off one day going home, going east, at the low water crossing that I'm talking about, it's a concrete structure. And I have expressed that there's been cuts in that whenever the water crosses through there with any velocity at all. I had a scoop shovel in the back of the truck, so I'll tell you right now, I took a dozen scoops and filled in a cut that was probably about 6 inches deep. But I got tired of running over because you basically had to just stop and roll over it, or else, you know, knock the tire out of the line. And that, I think the time for that crossing is come and gone. In my personal opinion, and I expressed this, I think, to the engineer, I think KDOT created the problem. When they improved 77, I don't know what year that was, when it was rebuilt, there was new box culverts put in. Actually, there's one right there on 77 as you go north, and then when you go to 310th, or what's the center corner there, you turn to the west, there's one that was installed there that was never there before. That's no further off the highway than our box culvert, or than our low water crossing. So at the same time, I vaguely remember seeing backhoes there cleaning out the ditch that feeds into the crossing. And so why I feel that's significant is because now instead of a 5-inch rain flooding that over, preventing a crossing, it only takes about a 2-inch rain. Everybody knows how prevalent a 2-inch, 1.5 to 2-inch rain is now. So, yeah, there's other directions to go. In fact, when I first moved there, we had to have a bridge rebuilt across Clear Creek to the west, coming towards the highway. And that was done with recycled materials from what I learned, and it's in excellent shape. It was built very well, have no complaints about it. But going other routes, as opposed to that until they rocked, I guess, KDOT rocked Xavier, which was not a road where there was any residences. They used that as a detour route, I guess. You had it even worse going down Xavier to get to 290th. There's like 2 to 3 crossings there where as soon as you have a heavy rain, you've got a foot or more of water crossing. And the very first day I moved to my residence in July of 93. 93 was a very wet, flooding year. That Monday, after I had moved over the previous week, I couldn't even get to work that day. I drove up to go south on Xavier, and I turned around, went back, called the office, said I'll try and come in later. And 3 hours later, water receded enough for you to get in, but I wasn't going to risk it and throw a vehicle into the ditch. Yeah, I guess that's basically what the tipping point for me is, and I know you deal with a lot of issues on this particular crossing, is reading in the paper about considering spending $82,000 for an old historic bridge upon another road where no one's taking. I feel like we need to look at the routes that people are paying their taxes for and wanting to. And you know, the final thing I'll say, and that is, you know, I know there's a lot of discussion, I've heard it, that there's some roads we just need to close down, not, you know, because they're not traveled very much. I'd like to be careful about that, because there are those out there who are paranoid and delusional, thinking that everyone's trespassing on their land, and so what they want to do is just close down everything around. I don't think that serves us well. I know people, and I'm sure all of you could attest to it also, that would like to move to this county, bring their families, bring the horse, buy a tract of land, a quarter, and build a residence, but they're not going to do it if we don't have roads there. I realize there are some out there that, you know, they turned into paths, and if they're not in need for agricultural purposes or any other purpose, yeah, you don't have easy roles, and I try to realize that. I guess I've expressed what I want to say. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer as best I can.
Was that your father, the road grader operator, or was you the grader operator years ago?
No.
Neither one?
No other Harmons around except for a brother and mother that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't have any experience at it, nor do I.
Wouldn't your road though be on a regular blade maintenance schedule?
Sure.
Should be. I mean, I'm not saying I know every time the person comes there. I'm not keeping dibs and a calendar of when, but it just seems like the consistency hasn't been there. And
I've been down that road numerous times, and I do know the water, not just at low water bridge, but there's a couple other places between your place and the highway where it kind of goes over too, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Or at least the water builds up on it there. And
Yeah,
that's because there's no ditch, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, you could take a field trip out there. As I said, there's at least 2, if not 3 places from 300th down Xavier to get to 290th. If you go further east on 300th, hit another road, you're gonna hit another narrow crossing, and it's the old, I don't know what to describe it. It's not a low water crossing, but it's a bridge. But it's in a valley. It's in a creek bed. It's the 2-inch rain, the 3-inch rain is going to flood it. And I don't care what kind of vehicle you got, 4-wheel drive. But I know in the last year, years past, and when I first moved there, I did notice a lot more common maintenance and blading being done than I've seen over the last few years.
So, Mr. Harmon, I will say, as far as the way you were spoke to by anybody, whoever it was in Road and Bridge, I do apologize to you for that. Totally uncalled for. And I know it is a problem that we have within that department with several people, and I just want to let you know that this could have been handled, and I just don't like the way our taxpayers and stuff are being spoke to sometimes, so I do apologize to you for that.
Thank you. I mean, I'm not gonna hold a grudge. As I said, I just wanna see improvement.
I understand.
Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Okay?
Actually, one more question
Okay.
about what she just talked about there is we've been trying to get a call-in system to leased from you to the road and bridge, so that there's a problem. You don't have and I hate to go back to call order systems, but a confirmation number. And I think we'll have to address it with Bryce. And Kent's been very adamant about a particular system of knowing where these are. But would a simple answer to your question when you called in say, okay, I'm gonna put you on the list and your confirmation number is this at a certain date and such a time. Would that be any assistance to you when later on down the line, if it's 6 months or a year down the road and you still have that confirmation number and you know nothing's done? I don't know, I'm just speaking out of turn here. Would that be any better answer for you to have than maybe what you described?
I don't know. You know, I made an online order from Land's End the other day, and they're backlogged, and so, yeah, I got a confirmation number. That doesn't mean I'm getting my order within 3 or 6 days.
Right.
And I guess since you bring that up, the other thing, the question I would ask back of you is, why does the constituent have to call in when a road's in need? Is the employee that's handling that area, can they not give input to the people to say, hey, this needs it? And there's been several times in the past when I said, you know, I'm not saying rock a whole mile and a half.
Right.
There's a cemetery there on an uphill site as you go east on that road. And because there's bedrock there, that's pretty firm.
Yeah.
But then you're gonna hit a couple of, I don't know, I'll estimate 20-yard spots where it's just so greasy. If you're in a two-wheel drive car and you pull over for someone else coming the other way, you're getting stuck.
Right.
You're going in the ditch, you're getting stuck.
And what you said that you will ask me, and I will tell you what I have learned is that we have about 5 different levels of bad and seriously bad, and that's, I won't, somebody calls me, I'll ask them if they've called the road and bridge, then most likely I'm gonna be out there within the next few days looking to see just exactly what they're talking about. And I've learned that I don't want to go tell my road and bridge guys to get out here because their bad over here is nothing like the bad over in the other side of the county or down the road for 10 miles. So that's why I'm saying there is different levels that people complain about.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to adjust to that, and that's what I'm saying, Bill. So.
And you know, that topic always comes in, it's
Yeah.
like, well, you ought to see it on this end. Well, you know, somebody in the south end of the county isn't concerned about me in the north end of the county as much as I'm not concerned.
Correct.
I don't know if that sounds selfish,
Yeah.
but I mean,
No,
we're all
I'm just-
concerned with our own.
Right, and trying to
Issue
judge
bad.
what's bad to you is concerned bad to the next person,
Right.
and so that these guys can maintain some sort of level of service, and that's what we're trying to do. But I just wanted a confirmation number, because.
And I know that, you know, it's been a long time since they rebuilt 77. Well, they're redoing it already, but.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
like I said, I
I'm
can't
just-
remember
I'm
that
just
year, but
wondering-
I do know when that year, when that happened, and you know, they had a lot of that route closed between Lincolnville and Marion, and they would also
87.
do it. That's when those concrete culverts went in. That really just, I mean, they were improvement. And like I say, there's one up there at the next corner, just
Yeah,
no further off the highway than our Loveland crossing.
yeah.
And,
Yeah, I just was wondering why they wouldn't have replaced that when they did that other one.
Yeah.
Because I remember '93 was a bad flood year.
It was.
I mean, that had to have been a year that was over that
Well,
structure all the time.
There are several instances you're thinking, how am I getting out? I mean, and what I basically did is just wait it out until the water receded.
So I want to ask a question to Bryce. I know, Bryce, you have been sending us your tickler system, your
Mhm.
list of people on that call in.
Mhm.
And I think the last one that I got, and I should have looked at it before I came, but I didn't, I don't recall seeing this gentleman's name on that list. And I also don't recall that list being hundreds long. It was a few. I
About
mean,
50, wasn't it?
maybe, but not hundreds. So I'm just wondering, was his name on that list? mean,
I don't know
I'm gonna
either.
go back and look because I don't recall, I just don't recall it.
Well,
Might be
the-
there, but I don't recall it if he's.
That's
on-
where a confirmation number, like Randy was talking about, would come in to say, I've got a confirmation number, but we don't have it on a tickler, so somebody must have somehow cleaned that cell or something when it was
Yeah.
on Excel or whatever they're using.
The reason that you haven't seen the hundreds of names on there is that tickler is, I don't know how many pages. That I only do the last couple months because everything else has been done, we hopefully have been done before that. So that's the reason why you only see the last couple sheets. I can
Okay.
send you the whole thing that would be
But if
hundreds.
they're done, then they're done.
That's what I'm
I think
saying.
we only wanna see what the people call.
And that's why I give you the latest, the last several sheets, the last 6 to 8 weeks, whatever else. And you know, as far as confirmation, I mean, I agree with him, confirmation is just a number. Well, in the last several months, Jesse and I have been working on, when we do contact them, we put them contact and whatever the result is or whatever else, like we leave message, say we're working on it. You know, again, the issue of the rock has been getting the rock out there. The blade, I will tell you that the blade operator in there has been down for about a month. He had an injury that recruited him, so we've had other people helping out there. So it probably is a little short on the maintenance. You know, the issue that he's talking about, the low water crossing, we had a pipe exposed. The water was over the road several times last year. Same thing, washed out the culvert. Or eroded the top of the culvert. We got back to the material on top of there. Yeah, the dishes need to be dug out. Trees need to be cleaned out too, so, but.
But, you know, we're talking about rock in that area, and we've not used any Lincolnville rock because it wasn't KDOT approved. Why is it that Morris County's hauling out of there like crazy
Talking about Burke camps.
at Burke Camps? I've been told they're hauling every day out of there. Is there better rock out there now? or
No,
what?
most people that are hauling out there don't care about the state certification, they just want rock. Plain and
Because,
simple.
you know, you're talking about an area like Bill's, gee, 3 miles away.
But the roads over in Morris County are built differently as well, you know.
Well,
so-
it could be, but I have heard that they're hauling a lot of rock out of there.
Yeah, Jeff Blosser told me he's contracted 40,000 tons with them. So, but that's been the commission's choice, is not to use them because of being state certified, so.
And they have crowns and stuff on their roads, so it's a lot different.
But we also have we'll have a lot of crushed concrete up there.
Can help, we just haven't got there.
And which pile is that ours? Is it on the east side or the west side?
Of,
The concrete
At
on 77.
on 300?
Okay.
The 300th is the only one we have.
Okay.
The stuff up on the 340th or the Burdick Road, the one on the east side is the one that KDOT still has that we've been trying to,
That's already processed?
no, that's not processed. The stuff on the west side is owned by a private individual, and he paid to have that crushed,
Yeah.
so. But that would be approximately the same material that we would use on the roads.
Right. Because that'll be nice to have in that area. It's right
You don't have to
there.
have all over the place, as far as that goes.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
I could see where that would make things better if you have closer venues to. And I'm not picky about the rock. I mean, I don't need to have it microscopically inspected. As long as it doesn't have debris in it that causes the tire damage or the vehicle damage, but, you know.
Now, I will say in those areas up there, we've gone to Woodbine to get their material. We got some of the material that's crushed out at the airport, which was from US Stone. They're defects, whatever else was crushed up, great material there too, so.
Thank you, Bill. You
Okay.
can stick around. It's
Okay.
Bryce is turning that seat though.
Yeah, sure.
All right, he can
I
stay.
warmed it up for you. Well, I appreciate your time. I know you got difficult jobs, all of you, from engineer to commissioners, and I appreciate any consideration you can give to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Pictures are always good, especially color pictures. What I wanted to show you was, I've looked at this thing with Mr. Harmon last year, looking at it. It's a very, very difficult place to try to figure out the answer, because the culvert, I believe that thing was reconstructed in '01 when KDOT redid the pavement through there, because I was actually working for KDOT at the time, but I wasn't involved with this project. But that culvert out there, let's get back to 300. The low water crossing, which I have pictures in there, actually has a 6 foot wide, 2 foot deep culvert going underneath that low water crossing. Now you look at that, that's 12 square feet. That's equivalent to a 48-inch round pipe. So that will run a lot of water. Now the reason it was set up as a low water crossing, I'm assuming it's been that way since, who knows, 50, 60 years, is the amount of water that comes down there is very obvious, because the KDOT structure out on the highway is actually a triple 16 foot wide by 8 foot deep culvert. Now, based on the square area of that culvert, that's 384 square feet, and that's how you size culverts. So, in essence, now granted, that's typically designed as a 25-year rain event, which, you know, with the amount of rains we have, you never know. But even if I pull that back to a 10-year design or thereabouts, it would still require 3 10-foot diameter railroad cars to handle the amount of water that would come through there at approximately a 10-year flood. The culvert is designed that way so that the water goes over the top, the water goes up, goes down as fast as it can. We still have a traversable road. Now granted, we do wash out a little bit of rock on either end. I talked with the maintenance officer, the section man there, and he said, yeah, it's done that before. He says, just a matter of bringing some more rock in and covering it up on either end. I've never seen it to where you have to just ease up on it, whatever else he said, but you know, again, I've never been there the whole time, but that's one advantage of a low water crossing, is the water goes across it, it's easier to fix when you're done. The biggest problem that I look at is if you want somewhat of a structure out there that they could drive across that would handle that kind of water. If I were to go back and build a concrete structure there, basically a triple cell structure, even though it's that big, with the grading and rock, I'm also going to have to buy right away. We're probably talking $150,000, $160,000. If I go back with the 3 railroad cars, I'm going to have to go. 3 of those cars would be about $35,000 to $40,000 a piece. The other big issue is if I put a 10-foot diameter culvert in there, is I'm going to have to raise the road up substantially. As you can see in those pictures, the road goes down through there and it raises back up. If I put a 10-foot diameter culvert in there, I'm probably going to have to go up, raise the road 12 foot, 10 to 12 foot in places. I don't have the dirt. I'd have to go find the dirt. I'm also going to have to buy right away in order to take those slopes out to do that. So there's some extra incidental costs that way. KDOT was, well, let me put this way. My personal feeling is, and from an engineering standpoint, KDOT did not want to mess with the structure anyway, because you can still see the right-of-way posts are on the very west end of this, where this culvert is. There's a picture looking south from that culvert. You'll see the orange stake sitting there in the ditch. That is KDOT right-of-way. So they didn't want to go back and have to try to improve that structure. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say they did not increase or change the amount of water coming down there through that culvert. They just sized it according to what their drainage is. Now, I was out there last week, I also looked at the culverts on 310th, both east and west of the intersection. Both of those culverts do drain down to the south, but do not come down to this culvert area here. Both of them go farther east and south over to the creek over there. Now this culvert, this low water crossing, also picks up water from the north and east of the highway for about a half mile. So it does bring up another, I don't know, 10, 15 acres, whatever it may be, to bring in water. So basically coming down to the fact is that if you commissioners want me to do that, I will do that. But it's going to take a significant amount of cost and effort to do this. So just leave it in your hands. That's why it's I mean, it's difficult to look at that. And you know, we've got these low water crossings all over the county. They've been there for a long time. They're there for a reason. And I hate to think that if we were to do this one, that everybody else say, hey, I need one too. Well, we're just, you know, and again, I can understand if I lived out there, I wouldn't want to drive through water, or God forbid we have an emergency that would cause a problem. This is also fortunate to where Xavier was rebuilt from 300 to 310th. So we're pretty confident that that would be another alternate route if the water was up over this. But I can't predict when it's going to rain, how much it's going to rain, or whatever else to justify that. So
Down southward, look there, that orange stake out there, that is the right of way?
yes.
Well, that looks almost like it encompasses part of the structure.
Nope.
Doesn't?
It does a little bit of the concrete approach on that side, but it's right on the west side of that culvert. So they looked at that and said, well, we don't want to go any further than that, because if they would have taken that in the right of way, they may have had to figure something. You know, and I would say that's typical KDOT, probably any state government, federal government, is that they don't want to, where do you stop and start on your improvements? Let's put it that way. Now, they did dig the channel from that triple box down to this low water crossing. It is a very uniform, approximately 10-foot wide, maybe 5-foot deep culvert, or open channel through there. So, I mean, they did account for some flow coming through there. Again, nobody knows for sure what that's going to be. But they obviously did plan for, well, and the structures, the new structure they put in is very similar to what was in the old roadway. They actually moved the roadway over in that place there. So those structures are very comparable. They may not be exactly, but so there's always been that amount of water going down through there. And unfortunately, that's what the situation is.
So have we been losing some of that structure? Is that part of it out down there in the bottom?
I think that's possibly a wing wall or something. The top end doesn't have anything on it either. There is some trees and stuff on the south side which we could go in and get rid of. It's not going to really solve the issue of the water going over the road. It may get the water out of there faster. But so, I forgot to tell Mr. Harm before he left too. I'm a little upset too that if he was told that, or whatever was said to him about that, that should have been that way. We need to treat everybody with respect, and so.
Yeah.
But,
You know, I'm just wondering if we could clear some brush in order to get the water to move quicker through there.
well, again, that's one thing we can do.
Is that a cheap fix, or is it worth it?
Well, anything and everything we do down there is going to make it better. It's still not going to preclude water going over the roadway. Plain and simple. That's what his concern was, and I understand that. But like I said, based on the economics and the engineering, it's going to be a substantial. And the other thing is, with the right of way, I'm going to have to basically start improvements almost up to where in order to make it a gradual curve. So now I have to go back and work with KDOT. I don't know how that right-of-way issue works or whatever else, because I'm going to have to buy some. I'm going to have to, if I raise that road up, I have to widen out the slope. I have to widen out the ditches, increase the ditches. So I'm going to be involved with their operations too. I don't see it.
Would they ever have any cost share money for like adjacent structures like that?
I doubt it, and that's simply because the cost share money they're looking at more for, I want to say, higher or more valuable. You know, and it's ironic you bring that up. I just heard this last week that a person with KDOT told me that the cost share money is gonna be about a fourth of it was this year. So they're drastically cutting that back, which just means more and more people want less and
But
less
yet
money.
they've got this huge new plan that they're working on.
But that's why it's a big plan. It's all big highways and stuff to that effect. So they're like everybody else. They're trying to change their philosophies on how they do that, and you know. But anyway, getting back to this structure again. I mean, if you guys want me to proceed with this, I sure can. It's the other thing I'm looking at is right now we're starting our blade patching today, so that basically takes everybody out, just like you did chip sealing. So when it comes to culvert work and stuff like that, we're probably talking 6 to 8 weeks for any substantial work. So barring any breakdowns or rain days or whatever else. So
Do they have any, is this box culvert is poured in place, right?
the one now,
Yeah.
yes.
They have a precast option?
In that size, it's probably going to be more efficient to cast in place. Simply because those structures, when they get bigger and bigger, the other thing is, if you could have put a single structure in there, it would probably be all right. But the multiple structure gets to the point it gets so heavy that you can't even lift it or put it in place without a huge crane. Just mobilizing in that huge crane makes it cost prohibitive. So, and that's the reason why you know, I really got some real good friends and coworkers in the culvert industry, and they basically said you're looking at 70,000 to 80,000 for a 2-cell structure and up to 100,000 for a triple structure, depending on the size and length and things like that. So that's why I come up with those costs. But the any way you go, whether if I could put a culvert in there, if I could put a 3 or 4 span culvert, it would reduce the height that I would need to raise it up, so therefore would help out. But again, that increased the cost of the structure too. So unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword.
I just didn't know if you could go further back, dig in footings and then drop the pre-stress on top.
Well, like I said, that's just the biggest thing. The other thing about pre-stressed culverts is sometimes they're 6 to 9 months out. It takes them that long to get them designed, get them in their structure. They're swamped like everybody else because they're building manholes and inlets and stuff like that too.
So how many times a year is the water over the road, and for how long at a time?
I don't know.
That's a
Depending on
couple hours?
depends on how much it rains. If I remember right, Matt Meyer off with ASCS or the NRCS, whatever it was, said that a 10-year flood is 6.14 inches of rain over a 24-hour period. Now you think about that over a 24-hour period, that's not too bad. The problem is we get it within a couple hours.
Yeah.
And that itself escalates you put up to here. So, and you know, he's right, that's the worst part about it is you never know when it's gonna flood.
And these roads were designed 100 years ago, because
Well-
they went with the flow of the land, didn't they?
They did a lot of that, but again,
It'd be hard to change.
well, when this was put in, it was put in for a reason, because they looked at what was upstream, or history is saying that we can't keep anything in here.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other thing, you put in these big culverts and say we get a gully washer, and it takes out the whole thing. I mean, that's the other thing is now you've got to go back and spend days and weeks almost starting back over and dig everything out and start over. So, you know, again, I know it's a frustrating situation. We have, you know, these low water crossings all over the place and they're posted, but I don't have to drive through them or anybody else.
A good trial at least, just to see if it would help, would be to take some of that vegetation out.
And
I mean,
there
I
is.
know it's gonna go over, but
Sure.
maybe instead of being over for 2 hours, it's over for 1 hour. I don't know.
It could
But
be.
even that would be
Yeah,
a big
now,
help.
and I don't know, there's a bunch of concrete riprap on the southeast corner also. I don't know where that came from, if that was placed by somebody, you know, I don't know. One good thing about this culvert is the fact, or this low water crossing, whatever else is, it typically doesn't see a lot of debris, simply because it's farm ground and stuff like that. It's been cleared out for, you know, half mile, so we don't get that.
You get trees.
Yeah, but it's still dealing with the amount of water, so, but.
You know, if we could free up the flow a little bit faster, why, it would make a difference.
Yeah, it's like I said, I would love to, no matter what I do, you know, minimally or whatever else, it's not gonna change what we're looking at, unless I go with the full-fledged, you know, huge design with pipes or culverts, whatever else, and then we'd have a lot better chance. Still no guarantees. Obviously, when KDOT designs a structure as a triple 18x6,
Is this bridge on your, I mean, it's obviously on your bridge list, but I mean, where does it rank as far as countywide?
that's not even a bridge.
Yeah.
That's just a standard culvert.
That's-
It's not governed by
Right.
state bridge laws or whatever else. That's the other thing, is if you do go back and you put in bigger structures like that, now it may put it back on the list, which is both good and bad, because now you'll say, well, now we can get some federal money for it. But that just, before you ever get federal money for it, it's gonna put it back up on the top of the list where everything else is still on the bottom of the list. So, you know, 100, 150 years from now, maybe that would change. But anything over 20-foot span is considered an actual bridge. That can be a multi-cell structure, basically from the inside of the outside wall to the inside of the outside wall. If that's over 20 feet or more, it's considered a bridge.
So in order to try to help these folks out there, could we maybe schedule some time in the winter to try to clear out some of that area to get it a better flow?
Sure.
Just to see what, you know,
Yeah.
it won't hurt.
We've talked about that, and obviously, some of the trees in there are cottonwoods, which they grow fast, they get in the way, they make a mess, they drop branches, stuff like that. So that's something we can do. I mean, I think it's very.
I mean, we got the equipment to do it.
Sure.
At least be a good trial.
Well, and like I said, it all comes down to the fact is that this culvert would probably handle, I don't even know what it'd be. I mean, that's the whole thing. You just don't know. A reasonable rain, it would probably handle anything and everything there was. But when you get these 2-3 inches an hour, there's hardly anything that's going to be able to. But it does allow the water to go up and down quickly.
So Bryce, I have a question then. If we do that, to take out the vegetation to get the flow going a little further, do you have any concern about creating washouts on the other side where it comes out the other end? I see it kind of looks a little bit like a cut, not
Well-
much, but I'm just, would you increase that, do you think?
And that's something we can deal with too. When we do that, is we could go in there and line the bottom of it with that heavy riprap. Or I can haul it off, whatever else. Water is anyway, look at, it's very erosive. You look at the Grand Canyon. I mean, it went down through all those layers of rock for all those years. It does that. But that comes to a maintenance issue. We just got to make sure that that's covered. So, yeah.
So I'm kind of on the side with Kent. Just clear out some vegetation this winter, and
Okay.
let's see what
Yeah.
it does.
Well, and I will say that I am continues to stay optimistic that we're going to try to get ahead of some of these things. You know, the road, the culvert he talked about, we did get calls about that. We lost probably 6-8 inches of rock on the road. We went back in and got that pipe covered up. Right to the north side of there is a kind of a wooded area. It's all silted in from years before. We started to go in there and get it all cleaned up, and then we got pulled off to do other things. So there are plenty of things, and I know that road does get a lot of, especially like this summer with them working out there, it got tremendously more traffic with the closures out there. So it's like anything else, we're trying to keep up on it and stuff. So, but okay, we'll do then.
Yeah, because those areas to the east of there that I was talking about, the water just sits. There's no ditch there.
Right.
Much.
Right. And the other thing
It's
is
really rough.
Yeah, the culvert where he's talking about what was actually exposed, it's interesting, and I need to find out maybe historical data from the NRCS, is the water actually shoots across the tree line, then goes kind of a west-southwest. Instead of staying in the ditch, it can go over here, and then they both meet in the same area. So I don't know if the area that's out in the field was caused by the volumes of water going across there from last year, or if that's been going there all the time, or it's because the ditch is, you know, like I said, that water should stay in the county ditch as long as it's supposed to.
So is NRCS working with you on any of that stuff?
They've been fantastic.
Good.
Honestly, I call
Because we've
call
got
Matt.
a lot of those
Yep.
areas.
And honestly, I have to say that I contacted Matt about some of these things, and he says, "Man," he goes, "you're right." He goes, "We didn't do this right." So he's been asking a lot more questions among his guys too, and he said he was a little frustrated that he didn't get the answers he thought we should have got either. So But yeah, fact is, we've got the road up here at 250th and Pawnee. It's dirt 4 ways. Water stands there all the time. I said, Matt, can you give me LiDAR information? He responded back, wow, that's flat. And basically, the only way we can solve that is from where that intersection is going south, we can drop 0.2 of a foot in 100 feet. Now that is almost flat. And that's for 1,500 feet. So again, it's a perfect example of where we can use their resources to get that too. So yeah, they've been great to work with. So.
What else do we got on the list?
All right, transport fuel bids. Epps was low on transport fuel. Went back and checked the numbers just in case. So sorry about that. So I like this request to
Make a motion for Dick Bryce's recommendation on Epps as a transport fuel bid.
should be one for Tina.
Second.
Second by Kent. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Okay. Something else we talked about, and Diane actually brought this up a while back. We've been talking about contracting fuel to budget our costs, if you want to say. The issue that we've been coming up with is how do we contract fuel based on the current way we do fuel now. We deal with remote areas or remote tanks. We also deal with transport coming in there. We've actually contacted all 3 of the people we do business with, and have actually been contacted by somebody, a large supplier outside the county, saying that we've contacted them. All of them would come out and basically supply us with 1,000 gallon fuel tanks, meters, either a 12 volt or 110 pump, whatever the case may be. They would all supply those to us essentially for nothing or $1, whatever the case may be. But they would only put fuel in if they were their tanks. So how would we go about doing that? Yeah, it locks you in for that length of term. Now, say for instance we go a year, and next year we rebid it and somebody else gets it, so now we're going to go out and swap out tanks. How often do we want to do that? We've looked into buying tanks ourselves. They're about $5,000 a piece. And so before we get too far into that, I'd kind of like to get the commission's idea of if we wanted to change and how we would go about doing that. Like I said, basically if we go to contracting fuel, we're going to have to say we're going to stick with one person for X amount of time, whether that's 6 months or a year or whatever it is.
At least a year.
Yeah. And I mean, right now the fuel's down. Everybody's saying that it's probably going to stay down for a while, but they're also saying that based on what it is now, if we contract fuel for a year, it would be about 25 cents a gallon more. So you're speculating. The fact is that fuel between now and then goes up more than $0.25 a gallon. Nobody knows. I mean, it's even, you know, the guys I've talked to in the industry said that the price has changed 4 times a day. So I mean, whether it's a 100th or a 1,000th or whatever else it is. So in order to go that way, you know, we're going to have to make either the initial investment to go out and buy these tanks. The other thing is we're probably pushing our luck right now. We've got a lot of portable tanks out there that are 300 and 500 gallon. They've been out there a long time. We don't know for sure what's on the inside of them. We're installing filters and stuff in there. But we also have one blowover. And fortunately it was empty. But that's the other thing we look at. Most of them are gravity fill. And so if for whatever a big wind comes up and knocks over one of those big tanks, now we've got to, you know, clean up.
That's what I was going to go to, is pros versus cons as far as their tanks versus ours.
Well, that's what we're looking at. And you know, in the past we've always kind of kept a few remote. We would try to get rid of a couple of them, but the biggest ones that we were looking for was the Pilsen and the South Shop, as well as Peabody. Those are the 3 places we use a tremendous amount of fuel coming out of them. We would think about putting one at Ramona, just simply because of the length away from there. And then the other issue was possibly Wade or whatever else, because he's far enough away from Peabody, but that's still something, it just take a little extra time, but they can still run a little extra way. But again, we put up a 1,000-gallon fuel tank. Nobody knows for sure if we've ever had any vandalism, but there's always that option. Those tanks are out there, whether they're padlocked, they cut those padlocks, they're not padlocked, it's numerous things.
Well, you got more issues than that. With your own tanks, you got liability issues,
Yeah.
insurance company issues.
Yeah.
How do they look at it? They may say, no way.
Well, I think a lot of them are probably saying, well, just kind of let it go, put one eye, but
Nowadays, they want to.
yeah. But like I said, as the 3 people that we talked to on the tanks, they were about $5,000 a piece. And the other thing we're finding out is more and more people are going to those now because of the variability of the fuel delivery and stuff like that. A lot of them are going out and say, hey, I'll get 1,000 gallons at this price, and I can save money down the road too. But most of them are going with either the 110 or the 12-volt pumps because obviously they deliver much faster. Plus they have a meter, so you know exactly what you're using.
And it's sitting on the ground too.
Yeah, these bigger ones would be because there's no way they could be up in the air. And the other thing, as Tom brought up too, is right now the guys are climbing up the side of fuel tanks. Don't know if they're going to continue to do that much longer either with insurance and safety. So some of them bring their own ladders. Some of them we have our ladders, but anytime if we have our own ladders, then there's that liability too. So we don't have to make a decision right away, but I just wanted to get your input. Maybe you can come back with something that would, the other thing is if we did go with a contract for 1 year, we wouldn't have to go out to bids. We would just, when it gets to the point we need fuel, we'd call them up and there it is. So, but obviously it's going to be one of those things where it's probably going to be extremely competitive if you have 3 or 4 people that are looking to get this fuel for a year.
As long as fuel's volatile though,
well,
we're better off bidding it because we're getting a better discount if it's moving around. I mean, I don't know. You'd have to average it out over a couple of years and
right.
see if you have any saved time.
Well, and that's the whole thing. Most of the guys say that they're really not making that much money on us. It's more of a service. But that brings up the issue is if we want to continue that, do we still go back and get tanks? I mean, we're still looking at that liability too. The possible liability, I should say. But and that's the thing is if any of these companies, they do provide the tanks for us, they take care of all of maintenance, whatever else is our problem, they come out and fix it. We buy our own tanks, all that maintenance and upkeep is on us.
Right.
So, not saying there would be a lot of upkeep, but
We'll say how much upkeep do you have now?
Well, right now we don't have very much at all because it's all gravity filled and whatever else. There's no power to them. But if we went with power, you'd probably have to worry about possibly replacing a pump, which is a couple $100. Which and you'd think you put a new tank out there that you wouldn't have any problems with it for numerous years. But there would definitely be less liability with 1,000 gallons sitting on the ground than it would be 300 to 500 standing up. Because honestly, a lot of them don't have very good structures to holding them up anyway. So.
We'd have to dike them.
What's that?
If you set one on the ground.
These new tanks are double wall. You either can get a double wall tank, which is okay, or you can get a single tank with a containment unit. Most people go with a double wall. So, yeah, and honestly, I believe the double walls were even cheaper because they're making more of them. So, because the tank is one thing, but there's an awful lot of welding making that containment unit all the way around there. So, but anyway, something to think about if you guys have any ideas how you want us to proceed. But it would be a good time to try to lock these prices in. But yet, if somebody had that crystal ball or whatever else that could tell us what the fuel is going to do the next year, you hear rumors that the Middle East is going to open up their pipeline and flood us with oil, and what's going to happen to So I wish there was a way to determine that. But anyway, just like I said, we can.
You'll know more after November.
Well, sure. Yeah, that's probably true. We're going to meet with the rock, or get with the rock guys, and see what they have left on the maps. We may look at the roads that are left and determine, because we're right at the budget now for rock hauling. So we don't want to blow that out of the water too. So we're going to look at that. I will say that, well, and I say that we've made a lot of progress because we don't hardly get any phone calls about when it rains that, hey, I can't get into my house. So I know we're hitting the spots. Probably not all of them, but that's what we're working on. Chip seal did finish Tuesday. Received a lot of comments, good comments about it. I think they did a great job again. Based on the dollar figures that we've had so far, I think we're in the neighborhood of $7,500 to $8,000 a mile. Now, I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
For a maintenance issue for county employees. Again, I've never seen a crew work together like they did. Everybody's just boom, ready to go. So, like I said, it works well. And with that, we did start blade patching today, or in the process of it. We're starting at Ramona to work on those locations coming south. Quail Creek, 340th, and 330th up there. Looked at 330th last week. I think we're probably looking at a combination of some blade patching, coal patch, as well as rock. We've got some areas that are several hundred feet long. I think we can just go put rock in there and get a good material. The other thing is, if it gets to the point, we can just put a quick coal patch over the top there or something to that effect to hold it. Something to get us through winter time. So, and I wasn't quite for sure if I told you, but all 911 signs have been, are done. We put up all those new ones at the intersections. So we've heard a lot of people say they like, you can actually see the signs and stuff like that. So I've just happened to be up in county line. I looked at Morris counties, you couldn't really read theirs, so they do show up better and they're a little larger. And we got approval from KDOT for the EDH consultant for that 290th structure, so they will start. We'll get a contract back from them so we can proceed with that. So.
And the reason, Bryce, give us another reason for having an outside engineering firm because of all the things that's involved.
Well, the permits, the surveying. This is the ER project. They need to get this done as soon as possible. So that was the thing. Is there again? You know, coming back to that design, we're gonna, if I start doing that, I'm gonna have to have CAD, and we're still gonna have to have it surveyed, and there's gonna be a lot of other stuff to go with that. But I'm still working on that. I'm still scheduled to go to bridge inspection training in October. Good. So at least get started going with that also, save a little money. So honestly, I'm trying to do everything I can, you know, with that. Just and it. You know, I say it'd be great to be able to do all that, but I look at some of the other counties, some of the bigger counties, they still don't even do that themselves. They just hire all consultants. And it's interesting, you know, the extra cost to keep that supporting staff doing that, you know, so. But, so anyway, anything else? Guys, any questions, comments? Nice to see you.
Thank you. You too.
So, but I will, we'll work on that thing up there on 300. And again, like I said, if I actually would like to talk to Mr. Harmon and find out what was said or whatever else to him, because I'd like to get to the bottom of that too, because we shouldn't be saying stuff like that.
Well, and as I just talked to you once last week, and then I brought you the address this morning, I've got a person down there that was well over a year, probably before Bryce was even here.
Yeah.
And we've been out on the site. He had a complaint over a year ago, and it's never been touched. And so, but it's sure been nice if when that person called me, well, I had a confirmation number of that, I would have seen that it was back a year and some back. You know, I mean, I know confirmation numbers.
Yeah. Well, in all honesty, if you guys ever want to see that sheet, I think it went back even, was it prior to Jesse, that it's that big, you know, so there's a lot of stuff on there, so hopefully we can get to the point where we can get ahead of it a little bit, so. All right?
Thank you, Bryce.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce. Is Josh out there?
Yeah.
Josh, you out here? He's coming.
All right. Sorry to keep you waiting out there.
That's all right. Morning.
Morning.
The solid waste management plan is a 5-year worksheet. I know if anybody's read through it last week, I know there's changes, but I talked to them about it, we go through this once a year. So the changes will be made next year. The changes that had already been done beginning of the year, which wasn't but a couple. We just need to approve it so I can send it back and it'll go to the state. So if there's any questions.
Anything on there that we need to look at that we haven't in the past?
Yeah.
Major change, there's no major change that I can see.
No, the only changes I think it would be for next year will be for the recycling piece of it. Other than that, there wasn't. I think name change and let's see what I have. Name change from Bud to me, and then when the phase 2 and 3 would be completed. Those are the only two that needed change.
I will make a motion to approve solid waste management plan 5-year worksheet. Second by Diana. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. 5-0. Anything else?
No. No. That's all I have.
I was gonna ask you from the weed side, are we spraying any of this Johnson grass yet? Boy, it looks like this year it's just taken over the county, at least in the road ditches. I mean, and even KDOT's got
Yeah,
it
KDOT.
everywhere.
I've talked to KDOT and they was supposed to be spraying. They said they're short-handed, you know. I got Brandy out spraying, you know, we jump where she's going wherever she can, so.
I mean, it's not just our road ditches, it's everywhere.
Yeah,
If you look on Highway 50, you'll see a path like this, and that's what they did. They took a tractor and a brush hog, one of the big wide ones, and that's where they went, was they covered the Johnson grass spots plus some other.
That's not doing any good though, is it?
Well, I don't think so, but that's what they did.
Especially if it's gone to seed or going to seed.
It's all, yeah, because that, some of it was on my, right there by my building, and that's what they did. And if you watch them, you look at the paths where they went, you'll see the
But I
Johnson
mean,
grass down
in the
there.
past, even here on 56, I've never noticed it like this year. It's just everywhere.
Yeah.
And it, you know, it looks like they could get out there and spot spray it, and in a year or two, they won't even be able to spot spray it.
I've talked to them and I've seen they've sprayed some, but not, you know, they haven't gotten it all.
Okay. Got anything else? I'll move on to Randy. I can call it.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
John.
How you doing, Randy? See you got your camera
I'm
on.
doing well. I'm hoping you can hear me well.
Coming through the TV here.
Okay.
Alright. So, Kansas Travel Guide.
Yeah, I wanted to come back. You will recall I was here in front of the commission back in, I don't remember whether it was late April, early May, talking about the Kansas Travel Guide. And at that time, the commission was very supportive of our Marion County eateries, attractions, hotels, events, places of interest, and you all funded anybody in the county who wanted to have a display ad, or a listing, not a display ad, pardon me, a listing in the Kansas Travel Guide. The county commission voted to fund all of those. From that, I think Tina would support me. I think we got 33 listings at a cost of about $3,000, I think, to the county commission, coming out of the transient guest tax. At that time, a small suggestion from Commissioner Crowfoot said, well, you know, maybe we ought to think about a display ad in the 2021 guide, because it will have a special Santa Fe Trail section commemorating the 200th anniversary, if you will, of the Santa Fe Trail. So I committed to doing some research about cost for a half-page ad, emphasizing the Marion County Auto Trail from the Santa Fe Trail Association, In my mind, the ad would be to attract Marion County visitors, to do all the things we have to do associated with the trail here in the county. We would logo that ad with Marion County and the Santa Fe Trail Association. And I've had a designer working on a mock-up of an ad, not quite finished yet, but I'm here today to ask for the commission's support in another funding request for the transient guest tax of $3,867, which would enable us to buy a half-page, horizontally laid out display ad in the special Santa Fe Trail section of the Kansas Travel Guide for 2021.
Well, I know next year is the 200th anniversary, and I know there's a lot of plans being made for commemorations and those kind of things, and being that we have some very good examples of that trail in our county, and some nice kiosks and auto trails. I think we need to take advantage of that.
That was my thinking as well, Kent. The ad that I have in mind will probably include a QR code so that people can scan that, pull up the Marion County Auto Tour literally on their devices as they're moving around the county, presumably with good wireless service anyway. But we'll have QR code in there that they can download some additional content.
There's still brochures of kiosks that haven't.
I'm sorry, Kent, you were breaking up.
No, I said they still supply brochures at the kiosks with that auto tour.
Yes, they do.
So I'll make a motion to purchase a half-page ad in the 2021 travel magazine promoting Marion County and Santa Fe Trail.
I'll second.
A motion by Dave, second by Kent. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Aye.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Randy.
Thanks, Randy. All right. I don't know if Rusty is on here, but I thought I'd seen
He was having trouble getting on.
Rusty.
Jonah, this is Rusty.
There he is. All right. Whenever you're ready, Rusty.
Okay, great. Well, has the commission received the reimbursement report and the direct aid report that Scott Lloyd and his team provided for us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in that case, I see Scott's here. Scott, do you want to open with a few words about the work up to this point?
Muted.
There he goes.
You hear us, Scott?
Scott, we can't hear what you're saying.
See him talking, but I can't.
Yeah, Scott, I'm not sure what's going on, but your voice isn't coming through.
Yeah, I think he's working on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
There you go.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I had my earbuds in. They must not have been working. Okay. So what we have here, just kind of a summary, is we have the expenditure reimbursement worksheet, which you're seeing right now on the screen, and this is a summary of those reimbursements. The 111,000 plus the 17 is the 129 roughly that was reimbursed. And so you have to work this sheet up first. And so that's kind of what our firm went through with Christine's help. Christine did a lot of the background on this and putting it all together. This is quite an undertaking, more than I had anticipated when we first started this adventure. So like in your county, I think it had, I don't know, 320 some pages of invoices backing that up. And we have to make sure all those are legitimate. They fall within the time period of March 1st to July 31st, and that they're COVID related or they have a tie to COVID. So we went through and did that first, and then we went to the direct aid plan and went through and built the programs up. And so if you looked at the direct aid plan, you'd see that it was broke up between the county's what's called planned independent expenditures, and then there was 4 programs, USDs, cities, businesses, and not-for-profits on the summary page there. You'll see, yeah, right down there in that square where it says, starts with the 2,389,000, and then it shows that 129 I was talking about allocations. You have to back that out. And then you have each of the categories that I spoke of, and then these are allocated based on and Rusty maybe wants to go into further detail on that, but there's an allocation method here based on student population in the school districts, the population of the cities, businesses that will be helped, and also for non-for-profits. And in that non-for-profit piece, just last week they broke out part of helping, like where people maybe couldn't pay their utilities. That was in a city portion, and it couldn't be done that way. It had to be ran actually through helping people. So that not-for-profit piece was increased a little bit by that amount. But that kind of gives you the summary, and that unreconciled difference down there should be 0. And then what will happen is on this piece is each one of these totals right here, the 625, 808, 110, 197, and 518, when the state approves this by September 15th, then each month from now to December 30th, we will be reconciling receipts that are turned in by each of these entities, and reconciling those receipts. They'll be approved, and then that's a check will be cut. And our goal is by December 30th to have all this money dispersed out, both through all the reimbursements and then each one of these plans that will be played out over the next 3 to 4 months. It all has to be spent by December 30th. I don't know, that's kind of a summary. I don't know if you wanted any more, Rusty, if that's what you wanted. There's any questions?
No, I got to sit in on a few of or at least one of the meetings, so kind of followed along.
Thanks, Scott. That's really helpful. What I would probably do is maybe add just a handful of details, picking up where Scott left off, and then Jonah, I think we also have a number of our Spark Task Force members joining the call, and so we'd be open to any kind of detailed questions that you all would want to ask of us. Like Scott said, on the direct aid plan, let me back up. The reimbursement plan to me is a bit cut and dried. It was backed by invoices or receipts, like Scott said, and so there just isn't much more that I have to say about that. That combined, the reimbursement amount combined with the fees for Scott's firm and the wages for Christine, then are subtracted from the allocation that Marion County was given. And that's where the amount that we had to work with for the plan came from. And then we broke that down using, in some cases, percentages of the total. And then from there, like for example, in the school district's case, we are proposing allocating them 36.5% of the total amount within the direct aid plan that's available. And then based on their enrollment and the number of employees that they have, that then determines each school district's proposed allocation. In each case, the school districts, I believe, turned in suggestions for what they think they're going to need that actually exceed the amount of money that we're proposing to allocate, but we weren't going to be able to meet all the needs. We got relatively close, I think, to meeting the school district's needs, and that's kind of the approach we used for all the different things that were turned into us. And so if you have, here in a moment, if you have questions about the direct aid plan in more detail, feel free to ask those. What we see coming is a need to let people know once state gives approval of those transfers, of how they can actually access the money through turning in receipts and invoices that fit with COVID-related expenses. So communication to entities that are going to be claiming these direct aid funds is yet to come, but I was thinking it'd be better to wait to start communicating that to all these entities until we know we have approval from the commissioners and subsequent to that from the state of Kansas. One of the things I think the commission is going to need to do is to make a decision about whether or not they're willing to transfer any funds prior to receiving state approval. Because if you would then not receive approval for a particular expense on the direct aid plan, then the county would be responsible for that cost. I know there's a perceived need to go ahead and start spending money on personal protective equipment, because if we're going to stockpile it, we're going to have to get started on that. I think Randy Frank's concerned that suppliers are going to run out. So that might be an example of where the commissioners might say, you know what, we're going to take a chance on that because we're pretty confident that that piece of the direct aid plan will get approved. And I am pretty confident of that. I think we all are. Other than that, I don't necessarily have another area of the direct aid plan that I would say to the commissioners, hey, let's start spending this money ahead of state approval. It would probably be wise to not do that, actually, so that the county then is not at risk for those expenses. So I'll stop there. And like I said, we're open to any questions that you all might have, or if you all want to have, you know, obviously discussion among yourselves about any pieces of this, feel free.
Is there a time frame where we can expect to hear from the state as far as approval? Do they have a date range where they're going to do that, or?
They do. It's between now and September 15 of this year. I think there's some sense by Scott and his team that based on their experience, it could come a little sooner than September 15, though a decision could. Scott, would you agree with that?
Yes, I'd agree with that. They're trying to expedite this as quick as possible. They hired an outside firm that's been doing this nationally to actually review all these reimbursement worksheets and these direct aid plans. So they're hoping to speed the process up a little bit.
So looking through the plan, independent expenditures. You're talking about the line 3 and line 4 to go ahead, and your recommendation would be to go ahead and allow for that to be expedited prior to state approval.
That's correct, Jonah. That's our recommendation. And I'll be honest, I'm trusting Randy on that. I feel like he's in the know there, and he asked for the commissioners to consider that.
I would have to agree. PPE would be the most basic related item. Now, as far as this is turned in, everything that you have listed here, if we were going to approve it as is, would essentially be locked in, and these items that are earmarked have to be this way, or could they be moved around still?
Yeah, great question, Jonah. They are not locked in. So, we've tried our best as we've communicated with multiple county entities to anticipate as close as we can these category needs. But the truth is we're going to be off in some places. And so Scott has confirmed for us that we can adjust and move things around as needed once we get into it more and kind of know for sure what some of these expenses are going to be.
I was going along with the expenditure title. Say something else needed something in the net expenditure title. Are we obligated to that title?
In other words, can we drop other elements of into the plan? Scott, my understanding is we can do that, but I'm going to let you speak to that.
Yeah, that's correct. They are holding off on sending out an Excel spreadsheet that will be used to reconcile it from August 1st to December 30th. They were wanting to get this deadline passed, but I'm just guessing. I haven't seen the worksheet, but what I'm guessing is that these numbers here will be dropped in on one of the tabs, and then if there's any amendments to any of these categories, so like let's just say that one of these you don't. The health very, I don't know, just there's not really a good one on the planned expenditures, but you can find one that if you wanted to change it, what you would have to do to report to them to amend it, I'm guessing, is you'd have the original number, you'd show the amended number in that category, and then if there's any added categories, they would actually have, you would add that in that column. There's going to be some kind of a reconciliation between the original plan that you're approving today and the plan as it's actually paid out on that new worksheet. And like I said, I have not seen the worksheet yet, but I'm sure that reconciliation will show up on there, and that will all have to be done. You can do it anytime up to December 30th. After December 30th, there's a report that's due March 1st, and there's a report that's due next September 1st to kind of summarize everything. But all the expenditures have to be done by, and the actual, any kind of construction, any different types of contracts are all cut off at December 30th. Now, if there's a supply chain, like in this case you're talking about with PPE, if there's a supply chain that actually is broken and you can't get your product, they're trying to get all that hopefully taken care of by March 1st is what their plans are. But you got to remember, all 105 counties of Kansas are doing this, and all 50 states are doing this same thing also. So some of these products and some of these things that are listed here are probably going to be in shortage, is what I'm guessing.
So Scott, here's an example of what I think Jonah's asking, and Jonah, correct me if I'm misunderstanding you, but let's say we get into middle of October, and this came to my mind because of the images I see on the television screen, and we decide that really there's some of these direct aid plans that aren't going to need as much money as we've allocated, but we've determined that it would sure be nice to make a couple dozen atomizing machines available for entities in the county to apply for. And so we want to put $150,000 toward the purchase of these atomizing machines. And what one of those is it's these machines that you see these people in PPE going through airports and spraying all over with disinfectant. We actually made 2 of those here. And so it's a really efficient way to disinfect an entire room really quickly. So Scott, would we be able to all of a sudden pivot in October and say, you know what, we actually want to take some monies and create another category in our direct aid plan?
That's correct, because none of us know we didn't know what was going to happen last March and February, March, and April, and none of us will know right now what's going to happen in October. So that's the way I've understood it, that you can, like you said, pivot and do whatever needs to be done to carry out the call here in Marion County.
Is that kind of what you were asking, Jonah?
Yep. The other element would be is if that title, say the atomizers were more important and another item 2 months down the road wasn't, would that one be able to be deleted and the atomizers substituted?
Yes, that's my understanding, Jonah.
Okay.
And like I said, I haven't seen this worksheet yet, but I'm assuming that what this worksheet will do is it'll reconcile all the money like it did on the reimbursements to invoices that are turned in, and then it'll reconcile the original plan to the way the plan will be amended by you, the county, moving forward if there's a need to amend it. Because what the state said over and over and over is the county is responsible for the 2.3 million and how you spend it within these guidelines to best be used. You know, so if you have this pivot in the middle of October, you pivot and you take one line out or a certain area out that's not going to be needed, and you add these other tools that you're talking about.
Okay. Very good. Let's, or to make a vote on it, I want to know what we're fully committed to.
Moving target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with the flexibility that we have, I'm pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable. Like I said, everybody took it so seriously when I saw it. Everybody worked really hard. I was really impressed with Christine.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of meetings and everybody worked hard and a very professional outcome. I appreciate all the hard work of the committee.
Impressed with everybody, so.
It's been a pleasure. I would echo that the group has worked really well together. It's just been really encouraging to me to see that we've got a group of leaders together that said we've got the best for Marion County in mind. I happen to believe it's the best place in the world to live. Some people laugh at me when I say that, but I mean it. And it's been a pleasure to serve.
Thank you, Rusty.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess I would make a motion to approve the Spark Task Force recommendation as is presented, with the exception to have outlay for PPE.
What was that again?
I'm not quite sure that I understand your motion.
I would make a motion to approve the Spark County's recommendation on the direct aid and all the other
Reimbursements.
Reimbursements.
And with the allowance for county funds to be spent on PPE items prior to state approval.
Oh, okay.
Second.
Got a second by Randy. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I want to say thanks again. I know that everybody took it really seriously and everybody had their best foot forward and really shows what Marion County can do when you put some of the best together.
One thing, Jonah, if I can just interject one thing. I've worked with 17 different counties, and I've been on, I think, twice the Zoom meetings with your Spark committee, and I have to echo, I've worked with Marion County for 37 years, and there's some challenges with the way that Marion County, works with each other, with whether it's Hillsborough or Marion or whatever. They did an excellent job of discussing these in the meetings I was involved with, and that's saying a lot. And I really believe that the way this plan's made, it's made also for flexibility. And so with that, I'm looking forward to seeing how this all plays out, because your committee did an excellent job.
Yeah.
And one final word from me for the commissioners to know is that from here now, Janine will take over and she'll get this filed today, and she'll depend on Scott and Christine as needed, but she's going to get this filed today with the state of Kansas. Today's the deadline. And so that will happen, and then we'll be in a bit of a waiting game. But we've got work ahead of us yet to create a process for applying for these non-for-profit and business grants, and for how to communicate with people in regard, like I said earlier, to how they can get the money transferred. They're going to have to be able to provide the invoices and the receipts. And so the committee's work or the task force work is not finished yet. In fact, some of the most important work is yet to be done. So if there's ever any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll try to keep the commissioners abreast of what's going on.
All right. Thank you, Rusty. Thanks, Janine. Thanks.
You'll figure out how to file this thing now.
Good luck.
Yeah. Thank you. And it is a good committee.
Is there any other action for this item that we need to take? I don't want to leave anything left out. I know time is of the essence, so I just. All right. Move on. Thanks again, Scott. Thanks.
Yep, thank you. See y'all.
See you. So it brings us up to commission property acquisition discussion. And I think it's got to be appropriate to, in the county's best interest, to make sure we do that in executive. So I'll move that we recess into executive session in order to discuss property acquisition. Item number 6, for preliminary discussion of acquisition of real estate for a time of 15 minutes.
15 or 20.
Okay. With the board, with Brad.
I'd like Tina to stay too.
Okay, with Dave's request, Tina also. Pursuant to KSA 75-4319B.
I'll second that.
Second by Dave. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. As aye?
Aye.
Okay. 5-0.
So were we 15 or 20? I thought I heard you suggest 20.
Did you say 20?
15, fine.
I had called for 15,
Okay.
and then it's your request to keep 10.
Can't let Brad talk to.
Okay. We good on that?
Yep, 15 minutes, so we'll be back on at 11:15. Okay.
The last 2-3 weeks.
Are you okay back there?
No,
The one that went at the county goes away. So
I think Scott's got an offer on.
Okay, everything's back on.
All right. Out of executive session, no action taken.
Wait,
there's
I didn't
something going on in
record,
town,
sorry.
we don't know what.
Now we're ready.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Out of executive session, no action taken. And going to move on to public comments and commission comments. I'll go ahead. People are probably still getting back on. So. Yeah, and I'll give it a few minutes if that's all right with everybody, so people get logged back in and realize that we're in public comment. Not seeing the balloon light up yet. So if anybody's on that would like to make a public comment, please open up the chat box and put your name in, and I will call on you. Time to give it. I'm not seeing anybody else jump in. Looks like we've been stuck at 9 for a second here. Hearing no requests for public comment, and we'll move on to the commission comments. Turn it over to, any of you have anything?
I have nothing.
It's more of a question, I guess. When the department head resigns, do they evaluate the employees before they leave to help us decide whether to promote within or?
Not typically, no. The employees are all evaluated at the same time every year.
But it was 8 months ago.
Okay. But no, not typically. That's not ever been our process.
Is it something we could ask, or is that good? I don't worry about it.
In the instance of the county appraiser, for instance,
Yes.
there are only certain people within the state that can be hired for that position. And so we have requested a list of all of the people in the state that are eligible. We have developed a letter, and that has been sent out to all those qualified folks. So we will go ahead and open the application period up. If we do have some people from within, we do have 2 that are on the list that are
Okay.
qualified.
That's good.
Based on the actual certifications that you have to have. And they will receive letters also.
Okay.
So they can apply for it if they want to. And it doesn't, you can definitely, if you wanted to have an executive session for personnel performance, you could review their most recent appraisals, you know,
Well,
their
this-
most recent evaluations again.
For my information, if we have to get involved in
Mhm.
doing something, it'd be nice to know.
Yeah, you could look at that. You
before
could
somebody
also
leaves, yeah.
talk to
Okay.
them and see if what their interest level is. And
I'm glad we had 2 people qualified then.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, the list is pretty long that you sent it to, though.
Yeah, we
Sure.
sent it to a lot of
Oh, yeah.
people.
Yeah, it's long.
I was glad you brought it up, Dave, because I think we hadn't discussed it in the meeting to go ahead with applications, but that's where it comes from. And that's the starting point to do that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to hire that, you can hire someone if someone's gonna get their RMA. And there is some rules, some other rules too, but it's a good starting point because we already have their qualifications.
Yes. We paid for it already.
Yeah. And it does go out to all state appraisers, or qualified?
We sent it to everyone on the list,
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah. Well, if they all apply, we're gonna be busy.
You. Glad you're chairman, because you'll get to find out here soon.
That's all I have.
Yep, okay, the only other thing is, and I think you said it was a lawyer question, so I mentioned it about the wind farms. We're sitting here waiting on an attorney or a judge to make some decisions for the south wind farm. And I have people, my constituents down here both ways, some of them, but the ones right now is pretty unhappy, as they'd like to see us put a letter out to support the wind farms, the expedition wind farm. Is that not a proper thing to do when you're waiting for the judge to make his orders?
I would probably hold on that until after the judge rules. And there are things that you can do certainly, if you choose, but at the moment, given where it's at, it's probably pragmatically a good idea to wait.
Okay.
How long can this thing go on? Indefinitely?
It's not an unfair way to put it, is it?
I mean, it just seems ludicrous to me.
Yeah, it's like so many other things. You'll see something in the news, and then 5 years later, you'll see it again. Sometimes I don't think anything like this will ever go anywhere close to that. They are trying to move it at this point, and there is some much more significant pressure being applied to try to get it moving, because the expedition, from their perspective, just on a business basis, wants to move on this thing, and so they've become far more engaged.
That's where, right now, at the time with COVID, and our business is needing business, and we've seen it up north in Diane's area. We saw what the cafe business did up there. We saw what some of the other businesses did that area when it was being built and constructed. And we need that in our county right now to help our businesses. And so that's my concern is I think that we could, you know, I want to help our business, and I think they're expecting some of that too, to pick up some of their.
So Brad, I'll ask you based on what they have brought up, understand to move forward on the project. As long as the building permits haven't been approved, has nothing to do with the lawsuit. So once those building permits are approved through planning and zoning, they can move forward.
Yeah, there's
The
nothing.
lawsuit is
well,
not holding that up.
Yeah, there was an attempt at some injunctive relief on that, but at this point, I don't know that there's anything that would preclude that. Now, there might be, if those go forward. You know, someone may attempt to say, wait.
Well,
this whole
they
thing
may,
is-
but they haven't at this point.
That-
So I'm just sitting here thinking, you know, everybody says the lawsuit is holding it up, but in fact it's not.
Well,
I think
it
it
could
is.
be. I mean,
Yeah.
as a business, I'm not saying that the lawsuit itself is
No.
putting a stop to it.
Injunction.
But if you're a business and you got a lawsuit going on, you're gonna wait to see the result.
Well, I understand that, but I'm talking about the
Yeah,
county
yeah.
issuing the building permits and
Right.
give the business then the opportunity to make their own decision.
Yeah.
Do they wanna wait or don't they?
Yeah, they
But
could-
right now, without the building permits being issued, there's no decision for anybody to make.
Right.
That was my
Yeah.
question, thank you.
We all square?
Yeah. I have one other one whenever it's appropriate.
Say what?
I have one other one whenever
Okay.
it's appropriate.
Right now, sounds like.
Consistent with the earlier property acquisition discussion, and this one doesn't have to go into executive, I've been contacted on several occasions by a lady who lives in Wichita who owns property in Florence. It's my understanding that that property is subject to certain action by the city with regards to its current distressed state. She very much would like to just grant it to the county. I've gone and looked at it as I went by. It would be a classic land bank kind of a prospect. I don't know that the county wants any more property, but she would like to deed it over to us. Has a house of sorts on it, and that's a couple of acres. It's kind of a triangular area there. You can actually see it on the edge of town as you go by. And I did not want to fail to bring it up to the commission, since I told her I would. And she's asked for instruction on that, and I know that she was going to call the county as well. Tina, I don't know if she's spoken to you yet or not, but we'd.
Are taxes delinquent?
I can't honestly say that. And when I looked it up, I don't recall that they were. I think she has kept those current. I just think it's got a bunch of, for her, she's not in a position to do anything with it. People dump trash on the property, and I suspect that the city has taken the position of saying, you know, the structure itself needs a bunch of attention, and the property itself needs a bunch of work, and she's just not equipped any longer to do that, and would like to rid herself of that issue. I haven't looked at Florence's local ordinance. Many of them are written in such a way that there's some type of prohibition on transfer while the action is pending, because they don't want people transferring to another, starting over, that kind of thing. And even if she did transfer it, we would inherit the city's request that it be cleaned up.
Why don't they give it to the city?
I don't know. She didn't say anything about giving it to the city.
Maybe the city said something, and
Yeah, she may well
that
have
started this ball, and they're not on equal terms.
She's called, left several messages, talked to my paralegal several times, and I had provided a response, a message to her that I would mention it to you. If there was anything you wanted to do, and I could gather up some more information about it if you'd like to consider it, but
Can she transfer to Marion's land bank? Aren't they accepting properties outside of the city?
I don't know if they are. It would be difficult for them to do that outside their jurisdictional limits, but I don't know that.
What do we use for the railroad down there in Florence? That was the land bank.
That's what I was thinking, that we did on a piece of property down there already.
We did. They told us we can do it, Brad. I mean, but we can also set our own land bank up.
That's it. That's it. I mean, if they exist within the county, I suppose for county transfer property, I can see where that could work. It's when the cities use it only for their functions.
Maybe you could refer to Marion.
Marion, certainly happy to send her their way and see what they want to do.
But let's talk about properties that we acquire in the tax sale and going through the land banks there. Right now, I visited with the city of Peabody last week on 2 of them down there that was sold for $1 a piece. And the city absolutely just didn't say nothing. I asked them to talk about it in their later meeting. I've heard from a council member that there was no discussion. It's not over with yet. I will be back to them again probably. I think they need some spark and stuff, but some of these cities, we've got, as you see in the tax sale in the paper, are the tax dollars. Peabody's right at the top, total dollars, I think 70,000 or something to that effect. And so, behind delinquent taxes. So there's some things that they're apparently, maybe they don't have no dollars in their budget. I don't know what the city of Peabody has, but I think they would at least address it, but they didn't seem to want to. So, just let it sit out there and like this, just let it sit out there and collect trash. There's some things that either coming to the city or the county in the future of these tax sales. I mean, this one guy slipped in, bought it for $1, he's trying to sell them for $500 a piece. And then yet pass the problem on to the city, who has the police force who has to address it, or the county, if they're in the wrong town, don't have a police force, and the county's gonna have to address it. So there's headaches coming our way. I can foresee that right now, just from the properties, because there's not enough work expenses being done to maintain properties in town, in our small towns.
Well, I will pass along the suggestion to check with the city of Marion to her, and then if the board wishes to
City of Florence. Oh, yeah, City of Marion though has the land.
Has the land bank. And Florence. And then if the board wishes to reconsider or reinvigorate the discussion on the land bank, I brought that to you once before, in terms of all that information, I can bring it again.
Would there ever be a way on our tax sales for the person that purchases a property, like Randy says, in Peabody, whatever, is for $1, and their intent is to turn around the next day and ask $500? As part of the contract, did they agree to, I'm not talking about structurally do anything with a house or something on it, but at least clean up the property?
You can't really do it through the sheriff's sale, but you can immediately put them in touch with whichever the entity was that may have already initiated that action. You've inherited this action. Now you need to come to a meeting and we're going to put you on a deadline. Because it doesn't go away. Those actions are not held in abeyance when someone else acquires the property. If it's subject to a distressed property proceeding by a local jurisdiction, continues right on. Yeah. And they just address it.
These investors have no intent of doing anything.
If you go to the ones that I've gone to many times, like in Wichita, they will set up an LLC, come in and look and try and score. Buy a couple of bottom feeder properties and then see what they can do with them, or hope that they suddenly become valuable, and sometimes they do. So there's always somebody kind of looking at that, or who's gone to a seminar in the last year where they talk about enriching yourself doing this. People from, now they also get buyers from all over the United States. People from California that look at this and it takes their breath away.
Buyers California and Marion County.
Oh yeah, I've dealt with it over and over again. Property still sits there and the same problem exists, and now we're having to serve someone in out-of-state proceeding to get them into a distressed property hearing. So it's a problem.
It's a tough one coming up. It's going to get worse. I have nothing else.
But that's what you were addressing. You were saying you were trying to bring it up.
Yeah.
Because they inherited a ruling and. Yeah.
One of the properties they've acted on said this house is inhabitable by the city of Peabody. The other one they haven't yet. But both of them's way beyond.
Right. Yeah. Be scared for the raccoon that goes in them?
There's squatters in one of them.
Some people live in it,
Okay, now let's talk about that. This one property, the people moved out of the one the city acted upon, moved over to the other one that's under our tax sale. They squatted on us, the county, before the sale. Now somebody bought them for $1. So, I mean, but what should we have done as a county? Should we have acted and said no? once we
have gone through an eviction?
Well, I'm asking Mr. Brad. When we know they're going on the tax sale, are they under our control until the tax sale?
To a degree. And if we've got people living in them, well, they're still owned by someone else
Right.
until such time as the tax sale occurs. And they're still owned by that same party if no one bids. So basically it falls back to the current owner to enforce their rights on property if they have a trespasser. We don't carry that standing. We don't clear the property for them. Basically what we do is pick it up on the basis of we've got taxes owed. So the citizens as a whole of the county have an interest in this property for purposes of collection. So that's what gets us generally into a sheriff's sale or tax sale. Sheriff then gives what's called a sheriff's deed to the property, now cleared of all of those taxes because it wipes it off by definition at the point of conveyance. If there's still somebody in there, first the prior owner had the right and ability and standing to get them out, and now the new owner has the right and ability to get them out. No, I think generally I don't ever take the position that we're going to go in there and remove someone unless we acquire the property. If it ends up being something we take, then yeah, we become that owner.
Well, right now, this property that the county owns is right here, that we've owned for a couple of years and we're paying to mow it every year. And this is the property right beside it, so this is the one I'm talking about. So if they move over here, which is worse than this one, I mean, and we need to do something. I mean, I'm trying to get the commission to just say, let's do it in the middle of winter time and go in, take the property. It's in a flood area. There's nobody wants it. There's no way anybody, they're just gonna sit there. We're gonna pay, I don't know what we pay per lot mowing.
I think we're paying $65 every 2 weeks.
$65 every 2 weeks for mowing on this property. And it's
a good job.
What the fire?
come on down, I'll throw it for
I
you.
mean, don't the fire department need some practice?
Well,
It's a really good suggestion, and it used to be something that was done with great regularity until the law caught up with us. KDHE now has to be involved and provide a permit because you don't know if you're going ahead and making friable mold or asbestos or anything else. So we have to clear it before we can light it. I mean, in terms of with the state.
Take the shingles off sometimes, and then if they're siding, yeah, it's stupid, but that's what we have to, supposed to do.
It's too dangerous to get on the roof to even do that.
Yeah, some of it is.
Well, most of the time they just stick the lull up there and put the bucket up on the angle and just scrape it clear off.
Yeah.
How do we get such stupid laws in place?
Protect you.
Protect you from your
See,
breathing.
that's the problem.
I mean, your
Everybody
air
thinks they have to
breathing.
protect everybody.
We're wearing masks now, we ought to be protected, right?
You'd think.
Yeah.
You'd think.
All right, very good. Good discussion. Anybody got anything else?
I think speaking for the commission, our condolences to Brad.
Thank you.
Who lost his sister. In our prayers.
Thank you.
So Brad won't be available.
He's going, yeah, the services are Monday and Tuesday next week, so.
Up in their home.
California, so all luckily drive it.
Oh,
You're gonna drive?
gonna have to.
Yeah, I can fly, but I'm gonna drive it.
That
Good choice.
car is quite the protected little bubble.
That's right. So the tree is.
When traffic's down, so
Yeah. Just don't get detained there.
We should be okay, I think.
All righty. All right, with nothing else, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Randy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Okay.
Yeah, we got this.